Lessons at EAC Fusion, Part 3. Ever since working at Electronic Arts in Canada, a company of about 10,000 employees, and half again that in the era of contractors, I realized that people dressed like the next level of responsibility. I think we spoke about that earlier. In fact, people went out of their way to drive fancy cars, wear fancy clothes, don fancy watches and jewelry, and they went on elaborate vacations and expensive restaurant outings. Even their children's birthday parties had to be huge. Yes, people acted the next level positions so that executive management might see them as already operating at that level and thus should be promoted to that level when an opening presented itself. These posers literally flaunted wealth and assumed power and directed people with implied authority. It disgusted me. My EA supervisor said some people simply endure and outlast everyone until they become in charge themselves. No one else of the old guard would remain, and so they might become in charge of the largely abandoned company, even if it had become uninnovative and mostly automated. He noted that it takes only a few interactions to identify untalented poser executives from skilled ones. Skilled executives ask insightful questions that make you question your assumptions and even your plans, whereas untalented executives talk generalities and latch onto obtuse, seemingly irrelevant things like more red in the scene would make it better, or do you have the cloud plan in place? Yeah, useless questions or direction that costs the team work just to address a useless query, even if it was completely and utterly stupid. The takeaway here was that executives may be incompetent, and it is important to determine quickly if they are talented or not, so as to tailor your reports to things that they actually care about. It had become common tip for anyone in our team to insert a lame duck in every design and milestone report that would be seen by EA worldwide executives. I spoke of the lame duck idea earlier. Back in early USA military days, generals would inspect war plans and strategies. They invariably were compelled to insert their incredibly awesome contribution, which only such a stupendous veteran of the military could have conceived. Their incredibly awesome contribution was usually something inane, like soldiers carry more ammunition into combat. Why isn't there a backup radio in the tank? Even big things like, that helicopter looks unstable. I need to see more test flights completed. All of these disruptive poser executive directions can often be mitigated or entirely prevented by inserting a lame duck. The lame duck is a deliberate, easy-to-find flaw in thinking or strategy or design that the poser executive will find and feel good at demanding its removal or correction. And since the lame duck was never a real part of the plan, there is no lost time outside of the leadership's divining the best lame duck to integrate. And better yet, there is virtually no team frustration with executive stupid interference. You know, smart interference is okay. It's just stupid interference that's the problem. With all of that experience in corporate facades and cons, I was unsure how I might get promoted myself in Electronic Arts. I had always been talented and been in technical leadership roles, but I had not been promoted as an employee outside of Atari Games, whose promotions were unique to say the least. I had to learn what it took to be recognized and get promoted, because hard talent wasn't enough. My manager at Electronic Arts told me a bit of corporate wisdom. Executives are often the acting posers that I was disgusted by, and they rarely had real talent, but rather used deception and manipulation. And they cannot understand the difference from the skilled and unskilled. And they value sycophants and people that just make them feel good, and certainly that don't make them feel bad. Material business impact and results cannot be denied by them, but that is in direct competition with people self-promoting and marketing themselves. And self-promoters go out of their way to insult and diminish others, to elevate themselves. To compete, I had to do the same. Dress the part, speak with authority, assume responsibilities that had not yet been assigned to me. He told me to step up and seize the next position, or some untalented person would take it, and then I would be forced to report to them. His bottom line, I had to showcase superior talent and appear and sound superior. Though I did not like what he had to say, one thing resonated very powerfully with me. If I was not in charge, someone less talented would be, and I would be subordinate and have to take direction from them and their inferiority. Therefore, I had to be in charge. Although the journey took years, I had changed my perception. I purchased a convertible Mercedes-Benz. Every day, no matter what the event, I wore dark, if not black, button-down shirts and very dark black jeans. I wore so much black that people took notice, some joking that I was EA's Johnny Cash, dressed in all black, something the singer was renowned for. Take note here, though. People took notice of me. They spoke of EA's Johnny Cash in his convertible Mercedes. Once talking about me, they had to think of things to say. He is the highest tech leader in the Fusion business unit. He designed and led the team that built the reusable tools and libraries and frameworks for all those dozens and dozens of games. The list went on. The key was that I was noticed and became a topic of conversation. I had begun to define my personal brand. Brands are things that other people create, not you. You can only give people defining things that they associate with you, ultimately with your brand, and your personal brand. It is what they associate with you that defines you. People began talking about and interacting with me as an executive just because I drove a fancy car, dressed better than most people in the company, which was not hard to do, by the way, and because I spoke with authority and confidence. And it did not take long for my manager to come to me and deliver a promotion, and then another, and so forth. I rose from technical director TD to TD2 to TD3 to chief technology officer to chief operating officer, with the backfill CTO reporting to me. Well, the moral of the story is that people are shallow, and they promote staff according to how they project themselves as much as they do for hard, real talent. So if you want to get promoted, define your brand, be talented, and exude confidence. Sadly, talent is not enough in this world. One final comment on all of this too. You must be consistent and stay true to the brand and the course that you choose. You must honor your North Star and keep marching towards it without falter or doubt. And others will see your intensity and recognize you and believe in you for it. It is easy to get stuck worrying if you have made the right decisions, or even one decision. Did you choose the right things to define your personal brand? Is your task breakdown and estimation and dependency assessment and risk analysis accurate? Will your team question the project direction and design? Indeed, there are an infinite number of choices, and most will result in failure. Some people need no information, it seems, to make a decision. They are usually making dumb decisions that fail. And some people require 100% of the information to make a decision. It seems to me that a computer could do that. They wasted a lot of time and research to get there. And then there are some people that need 60% of the information to make a decision. Just enough to be more than a guess on the right side of probable correct answers. Just enough to win, but not wasting time. There are gradients from 0 to 100% in the amount of information that you may need to make a decision. But the point is that either extreme of 0 or 100% is most likely a suboptimal choice to make a decision. You need some information, but you probably don't need everything. Instead, my phrase to everyone I have coined is, do not fret about making the right decision. Make your decision right. It is a simple mantra that I espoused. Get enough information to make an informed decision. 60% is the default I recommend. And then make a plan and execute against it. But as new problems and discoveries show up, course correct and adapt. I often joke that if you left the dock towards Hawaii and were even 1 degree off in course, you will miss the island entirely. Never mind what winds and ocean current shifts might move your ship off course, despite your best efforts. So of course, such a trek requires course correction constantly as the vessel proceeds towards Hawaii. In the same fashion, development projects need a thorough plan to get to Hawaii, but they need to not over-index and waste time and resources before they set course and get going. They need to plan for course corrections en route and iterate through their plan and schedules and deliverables as they went. Remarkably though, people resist slotting formal iteration and course correction blocks into schedules. It is something that senior executives must request of lower management, or they will generally never do so, for it looks like wasted time. Listen to yourself is my truest advice. When highly unsure of doing something, don't do it. If you're not sure of a change, don't make the change. But when you have 66.6%, 2/3 of the information to make the decision, go ahead and make it. You don't need to collect more information. Collecting more data to justify indecision is usually a waste. Again, I've generalized. 60% information is sufficient to make most initial plans and get going. In rare leaps of faith, it may be unwise to jump if it will completely untether you from income, family, or livelihood. Those sacrifices are rarely justified. those risks probably merit more information than 60%. Never make a leap of faith without a safety net below should you slip from the trapeze, high tightrope act and fall. You need to make sure that total failure is not livelihood or literal death failure. So many years I worked alone in my apartment, or a condo, townhouse, or a house. It did not matter how big or how small my abode was. I worked alone for the majority of my early career. I had a pet cat named Princess that lived to 22 years old. She was with me for most of my freelance contractor game development years. She would sit on a green pillow atop a foldable director's chair with its arms folded down. She was my friend, ally, and supervisor. She was my princess. Whenever I would find myself struggling to devise a solution to a complex problem, sometimes a game feature that had never been done on any computer or video game console, when I was pushing the limits of the tech or the platform in the era, but I had no one to talk to. I had no one to explain my tech ideas or problems to. But I did have my princess. I had my beautiful little kitty cat princess to talk to. And so I did. I explained all of my programming challenges, and she listened to me intently. She would look upon me and sometimes open her mouth as if to utter support or tell me a solution. She was my freelance foundation. Detailing my programming flows and algorithms with Princess helped me think through things. Simply by going through the process of having to explain everything out loud to my cat Princess made me see things in a third-person perspective and see mistakes or potentially even better approaches. Princess made me a better programmer and a better game designer. I used my Princess talk-through technique a lot. And later in life, I shared the concept with others, but I modified it to be the Bow Wow test. Yes, people seemed more receptive to explaining things to a dog than to a cat. I never knew why dogs were more explainable to than cats. But that's the way people reacted. Maybe most people do not have cats that would sit there long enough to listen to them. Either way, the Bow Wow test it was. It had more of a memorable name than the Meow test. People extolled the surprising value of just talking out loud to a pet at a canine level of knowledge with no assumptions. Everything that they were thinking and why it made sense. And through that process, they typically discovered the insight they needed or exposed the flaw in their algorithm or a dependency that they had missed. In any agreement, legal or contract, there is the intent or the spirit of the agreement where both parties know what was expected and the outcome they intended it to be. However, there are times that expectations like that are abused or subverted. Bad actors hide behind legalese, hyperbola, and they use broad stroke letters of intent, LOIs, or contracts to accommodate their future revisionist history, and they modify contracts to suit their desired outcomes. Whether verbal or written in contract, intent and spirit of the objectives should be what matters most. An odd corollary: unreputable lawyers seek to discard the spirit and intent of agreements and contracts. It is their strategy to manipulate and con people, just as the devil would con someone out of their soul, corrupting the intent of the deal with their contracted victim. Attorneys use courts to uphold the rule of law, to entrap and ensnare innocent people, to make them make soul-wrenching bargains to protect their livelihoods and families, all to make money and propel their selfish lawyer lives forward at the expense of the victimized people. And downtrodden, beaten, and lost, those people become even more vulnerable to others doing more evil to them. And then they may themselves be forced to turn to evil just to get by and retaliate against other abuses. The circle and cycle of evil and abuse is terrible. The devil works in mysterious ways, and the devil contorts and twists contracts and agreements to the detriment of the would-be benefactor. Companies and individuals can operate just like the devil. Let me propose an interesting psychological idea. Have you entered a coffee shop like Starbucks and seen a donation jar for a charity or a school or a social cause? And have you noticed oftentimes there are 2 or more donation jars to choose from? Euphemistically, imagine a coffee shop with 2 donation jars, one labeled cats and the other labeled dogs. The signage on the feline jar showcases a cute kitten wearing glasses, winking, and its mouth open as if speaking with a slogan, "Keep on meowing." The dog jar sports a big lab puppy face with a tongue hanging out with its own slogan, "Bark and experience more." As a person enters the coffee shop, they see the donation jars at the register as they wait in line and place their order. Well, I feel the kitten was an adorable image with its wink and open mouth and calling out for a plea for help. It was a simple, powerful image, and it pulls at my heartstrings. Conversely, the dog is cute and is probably adorable to dog lovers, but I have never been a dog lover myself. I like some dogs. I've even had a few dogs that I was very close to. But as I grew up, dogs just were not as good as cats to me. So let's continue. A woman in line in front, studying the signs. The cat, "Keep on meowing." A pun on the phrase "keep on trucking." The dog, "Bark and experience more." A nod to the game Ultima saying "Journey onward, experience more." So the woman quipped, "Puppies, I love puppies." And so she put her return coin change into the donation jar for dogs. I knew we were all being manipulated by those images and slogans. That's what they're for. They are designed to appeal to all sorts of things. Emotional connections to the animals that we grew up with, slogans that remind us of nostalgia and of freer, happier times. Even so, they were successful at manipulating me and the woman. And I am hard to manipulate, and I knew what they were doing. And yet, I wanted to donate to the cat. I recall learning a few psychological ploys to maximize donations. 1. Guilt or shame people so they will feel good about themselves when they donate, and bad about themselves if they do not give to the cause. 2. Tribal identity and inclusion, so that people feel they are part of something bigger than themselves and are a valuable member and contributor to the tribe. 3. Declare faith or superstitious North Star to inspire people to pay for a better afterlife. They could suffer now for the future. so donate now. It was not about emphasizing the actual benefit of the mission or showing tangible need. It was about inspiring emotional sympathy or pity or shame to disarm resistance to sacrifice. The person is set up to feel like a hero only upon rescue of the defenseless baby animals by donating money. And if the cute animals were not enough, the inspirational phrases hearkening to fundamental ideological concepts of nostalgia with Keep On Truckin' and Journey Onward, Experience More. Cats and Dogs is my label for my manipulation of people to donate or take action by leveraging guilt, shame, tribal belonging, or faith superstition. When you cannot buy people's support, and instead want them to do what you want, even pay you, it is leverage and manipulation that are the most effective at improving the probability of success. Cats and Dogs is one method of improving the probability of success. I learned even the most innocent of things, like a donation jar, are coated with manipulative messages, slogans, artwork, and even affinities and values, like the love of cats and dogs. Manipulation is everywhere.